Yes. Okay. We're in page 222 of the PDF, everyone. Money is a perfectly legitimate measurement of goods sold or services rendered, but it is no calculation of value. Just because somebody makes a lot of money does not mean that he necessarily provides a lot of value. Likewise, because somebody makes little money does not necessarily mean he provides only a little value. Simply by measuring the number of goods sold or money bought in is no indication of value. Value is a feeling, not a calculation. It is perception. One could argue that a product with more bells and whistles that sells for less is the greater value. But whose standard? But by whose standard? My uncle used to make tennis rackets. His rackets were made the exact same factory as a name brand racket. They were made of same material on the same machine. The only difference with that, when my uncle's rackets came off the assembly line, they didn't put the well-known brand logo on the product. My uncle's ragged sold for less money in the same big box retailer next to the name of brand rackets. Month after month, the name brand rackets outsold the generic ones. Why? Because people perceived greater value for the name brand rackets and felt just paying a premium for that feeling. On a strictly rational scale, the generic rackets offered better value. But again, value is a perception, not a calculation, which is the reason companies make such a big deal about investing in their brand. But a strong brand, like all other intangible factors that contribute to the perception of value, starts with a clear sense of why. If those outside the megaphone share your why, and if you're able to clearly communicate that belief in everything you say and do, trust emerges and value is perceived. When that happens, loyal buyers will always rationalize the premium they pay or the inconvenience they suffer to get that feeling. To them, the sacrifice of time or money is worth it. They will try to explain that their feeling of value comes from the quality or features or some other easy to point element, but it doesn't. Those are external factors, and the feeling they get comes completely from inside them. When point when people can point to a company and clearly articulate what the company believes and use words unrelated to price, quality, service, and features, that is proof the company has successfully navigated the split. When people describe the value they perceive with a visceral, excited words like love, that is a sure sign that a clear sense of why exists. Good successions keep the why alive. There were three words missing from Bill Gates' goodbye speech when he officially left Microsoft in June 2008. They are three words he probably doesn't even realize need to be there. I'll be back. Though Gates abdicated his role as CEO of Microsoft to Steve Ballmer in 2000 to lend more time and energy to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, he still maintained a role and a presence at the Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington. His plan was always to completely leave the company in care of others, but like a lot of founders, Gates forgot to do one thing that would allow his plan to work. This one oversight could have a devastating impact on Microsoft and may even require him to come back someday to right the ship he built. Bill Gates is special, not just because of his brain or his management style. Though important, those two things alone are not the formula for building a $60 billion corporation from scratch. Like all visionary leaders, Bill Gates is special because he embodies what he believes. He is the personification of Microsoft's why. And for that reason, he serves as a physical beacon, a reminder of why everyone comes to work. When Gates founded Microsoft with Paul Allen in 1975, he did so to advance a higher cause. If you give people the right tools and make them more productive, then everyone, no matter their lot in life, will have an opportunity to achieve their real potential. A PC in every home and on every desk, he envisioned. Remarkable from a company that didn't even make PCs. He saw the PC as a great equalizer. Microsoft's most successful software, Windows, allowed anyone to access powerful technology. Tools like Word, Excel, PowerPoint gave everyone the power to realize the promise of new technology, to become more efficient and productive. Small businesses, for example, could look and act like big businesses. Microsoft's software helped Gates advance his cause to empower the everyman. Make no mistake, Microsoft has done more to change the world than Apple. Though we are drawn to Apple's well deserved reputation for innovation and challenging the business models for more than one industry, it is Microsoft that was responsible for the advancement of personal computers. Gates put a PC on every desk, and in doing so, he changed the world. As the physical embodiment of the company's why, the everyman who fulfilled an amazing potential, what happens now that he is gone? Gates himself has always held that he receives a disproportionate amount of attention for his role at Microsoft, much of it, of course, due to his exceptional wealth. Like all inspired leaders, he recognizes that his role to lead the cause, but it is others who will be physically responsible for bringing that cause to life. Martin Luther King Jr. could not have changed America walking across a bridge in Selma, Alabama, with five prominent civil rights leaders. It took thousands of people marching behind them to spur change. Gates recognizes the need for people to produce real change, but he neglected to remember that any effective movement, social or business, needs a leader to march in the front, preaching the vision and reminding people why they showed up in the first place. Though King needed to cross the bridge from Selma on his march to Montgomery, it was what it meant to cross the bridge that mattered. Likewise, in business, though profit and shareholder value are valid and essential destinations, they do not inspire people to come to work. Although Microsoft went through a split years ago, changing from a company that intended to change the world into a company that makes software, having Gates hanging around helped Microsoft maintain at least a loose sense of why they exist. With Gates gone, Microsoft does not have sufficient systems to measure and preach their why anymore. This is an issue that will have an exponential impact as time passes. Such a departure as Gates is not without precedent among companies with equally visionary leaders. Steve Jobs, the physical embodiment of the rabble rousing revolutionary, man who personifies his company's why, left Apple in 1985 after a legendary power struggle with the Apple's president, John Sculley, and the Apple's board of directors. The impact on Apple was profound. Originally hired by Jobs in 1983, Scully was a perfectly capable executive with a proven track record. He knew what to do and how to do things. He was considered one of the most talented marketing executives around, having risen quickly through the ranks of PepsiCo. At Pepsi, he created the wildly successful Pepsi Challenge Taste Test advertising campaign, leading Pepsi to overtake Coca Cola for the first time. But the problem was, Scully was a bad fit at Apple. He ran the company as a business and was not there to lead the cause. It is worth considering how such a bad fit as Scully even got a job at Apple in the first place. Simple. He was manipulated. Scully did not approach Jobs and ask to be a part of Apple's cause. The way the real story unfolded made that followed almost unpredictably. Jobs knew he needed help. He knew he needed a how guy to help him scale his vision. He approached Scully, a man with a solid resume, and said, "Do you want to sell sugar water for your whole life or do you want to change the world?" Playing off Scully's ego, aspirations, and fear, Jobs completed a perfectly executed manipulation. And with it, Jobs was ousted from his own company a few years later. Apple thrived on Steve Jobs' fumes for a few years as the business started buying up Macintoshes and software developers continued to create software. But it wouldn't be long until the company would begin to falter. Apple just wasn't what it used to be. It had gone through the split and ignored it. That's why the why was getting fuzzier and fuzzier with each passing year. The inspiration was gone, literally. With a capable executive like Scully running the business, there was no one to lead the cause. New products would be less revolutionary and more evolutionary, reported Fortune magazine at the time. Some people might even call them dull, wary of Apple's right brain ways. Sorry, 1 minute. Wary of Apple's right brain ways, Scully reorganized the company repeatedly, each time trying to get back what Apple clearly had lost. He brought in a new executive staff to help, but all they were doing was trying to manage how the company worked when it was the why that needed attention. Needless to say, morale was dismal. It wasn't until Jobs returned in 1997 that everyone inside and outside the company was reminded why Apple existed. With the clarity back, the company quickly re-established its power for innovation, for thinking different, and once again for redefining industries. With Jobs at the helm again, the culture for challenging the status quo, for empowering the individual returned. Every decision was filtered through the why and it worked. Like most inspiring leaders, Jobs trusted his gut over outside advice. He was regularly criticized for not making mass market decisions, such as letting people clone the Mac. He couldn't. These actions violated what he believed. They failed the celery test. When a person who personifies the why departs without clearly articulating why the company was founded in the first place, they will lead no clear cause for their successor to lead. The new CEO will come aboard to run the company and will focus attention on the growth of what with little attention to why. Worse, they may try to implement their own vision without considering the cause that originally inspired most people to show up in the first place. In these cases, the leader can work against the culture of the company instead of leading or building upon it. The result is diminished morale, mass exodus, poor performance, and a slow and steady transition to a culture of mistrust and every man for himself. It happened at Dell. Michael Dell, too, had a cause when he started the company. From the start, he focused on efficiency as a way of getting more computing power into hands. Unfortunately, it was a cause that he too forgot and then didn't communicate well enough before he stepped down as CEO of Dell Corp in July 2004. After the company started to weaken, customer service for one plummeted. He came back in less than 3 years. Michael Dell realized that without him present to keep the energy focused on Dell Corp was founded, the company became more obsessed. The company became more obsessed with what at the expense of why. The company was too focused on short term, and the balance of priorities was way too leaning toward things that deliver short term results. That was the major root cause. Dell told the New York Times in September 2007 the company had in fact become so dysfunctional that some managers were compelled to falsify earnings reports between 2003 and 2006 in order to meet sales targets, suggesting a corporate culture that put undue pressure on managers to meet bottom line targets. In the meantime, the company had missed significant market shifts, most notably the potential of consumer market, and lost its edge with the component suppliers as well. As in 2006, Hewlett Packard (HP) swept past Dell as the largest seller of PCs worldwide. Dell had gone through the split and failed to recognize the reason it wasn't the company it used to be. Starbucks is another good example. In 2000, Howard Schultz resigned as the CEO of Starbucks, and for the first time in its history, despite 50 million customers per week, the company started to crack. If you look back at the history of Starbucks, it thrived not because of its coffee, but because of the experience it offered to customers. It was Schultz who brought that why to the company when he arrived in 1982. 10 years after Gordon Bowker, Jerry Baldwin, and Zeev Siegel first started selling coffee beans in Seattle. In the early days, it was just about the coffee. Schultz, frustrated that the founders of Starbucks couldn't see the larger vision, set out to put the company on a new course. The course that ultimately turned Starbucks into the company we know today. Schultz had been enamored of the espresso bars in Italy, and it was his vision of building a comfortable environment between work and home. The third place, as he called it, that allowed Starbucks to single-handedly create a coffee shop culture in the United States that had until then only existed on college campuses. That was the time when Starbucks stood for something. It reflected an underlying belief about the world. It was that idea that people bought, not the coffee. And it was inspiring. With Starbucks, like so many before it, went through an inevitable split. They too forgot about why the company was founded and started focusing on results and products. There was a time when Starbucks offered the option to sip your coffee out of a ceramic cup, and eat your Danish off a ceramic plate. Two perfect details that help bring the company's belief to life in the place between work and home. But ceramic crockery is expensive to maintain, and Starbucks did away with it, favoring the most efficient paper cups. Though it saved money, it came at a cost: the erosion of trust. Nothing says to a customer, "We love you, now get out," like a paper cup. It was no longer about the third place. It had become about the coffee. Thankfully, Starbucks why? Thankfully, Schultz was there, the physical embodiment of why, to remind people of the higher costs. But in 2000, he left and things got worse. The company had grown from fewer than 1,000 stores to 13,000 stores in only 10 years. 8 years and two CEOs later, the company was dangerously overextended, just as it was facing an onslaught of competition from McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, and other unexpected places. In a now famous memo that Schultz wrote to his successor, Jim Donald, just months before returning to take the helm, he implored Donald to make the changes necessary to evoke the heritage, the tradition, and the passion that we have all for the true Starbucks experience. The reason the company was floundering was not that it grew too fast, but that Schultz had not properly infused his why into the organization so that the organization could manage the why without him. In early 2008, Schultz replaced Donald with a leader who could better steer the company back to a time before the split himself. None of these executives are considered God's gifts to management. Steve Jobs' paranoia, for example, is well documented, and Bill Gates is socially awkward. Their companies are thousands of people deep, and they alone cannot pull all the strings or push all the buttons to make everything work properly. They rely on the brains and the management skills of teams of people to help them build their megaphones. They rely on people who share their cause. In this respect, they are no different from some other executives. But what they have in common, something that not all CEOs possess, is that they physically embody the cause around which they build their companies. Their physical presence reminds every executive and every employee why they show up at work. Put simply, they inspire. Yet, like Bill Gates, these inspired leaders have all failed to properly articulate their cause into words that others could rally around in their absence. Failing to put the movement into hard words leaves them as the only ones who can lead the movement. What happens when Jobs or Dell or Schultz leave again? For companies of any size, success is the greatest challenge. As Microsoft grew, Gates stopped talking about what he believed and how he was going to change the world and started talking about what the company was doing. Microsoft changed. Founded as a company that believed in making people more productive so that they could achieve their highest potential, Microsoft became a company that simply made software products. Such a seemingly subtle change affects behavior. It alters decisions and it impacts how a company structures itself for the future. Though Microsoft had changed since its founding, the impact was never as dramatic because at least Bill Gates was there, the physical embodiment of the cause that inspires his executives and employees. Microsoft is just one of the tangible things that Gates has done in his life to bring his cause to life. The company is one of the what's, to his wife. And now he's off to do something else that also embodies his cause. To use the Gates Foundation to help people around the world wake up every day to overcome obstacles so they too can have an opportunity to achieve their potential. The only difference is he's not doing it with software anymore. Steve Ballmer, a smart man by all accounts, does not physically embody Gates' vision of the world. He has the image of powerful executives who sees numbers, competitors, and markets. He is a man with a gift of managing the what line. Like John Scully at Apple, Jim Donald at Starbucks, Kevin Rollins at Dell, all the CEOs who replace the visionary founders or executives, Ballmer might be the perfect man to work alongside a visionary, but is he the perfect man to replace one? The entire culture of all these companies was built around one man's mission. The only succession plan that will work is to find a CEO who believes in and wants to continue to lead the movement, not replace it with their own vision of future. Ballmer knows how to rally the company, but can he inspire it? Successful succession is more than selecting someone with an appropriate skill set. It's about finding someone who is in lockstep with the original cause around which the company was founded. Great second or third CEOs don't take the helm to implant their own vision of the future. They pick up the original banner and lead the company into the next generation. That's why we call it succession, not replacement. There is a continuity of vision. One of the reasons Southwest Airlines has been so good at succession is because its cause is so ingrained in its culture, and the CEOs who took over from Herb Kelleher also embodied the cause. Howard Putnam was the first president of Southwest after Kelleher. Though he was a career airline guy, it was not his resume that made him so well suited for the company. He was a good fit. Putnam recounts the time when he met Kellner to interview for his job. Putnam leaned back in his chair and noticed that Kellner had slipped his shoes off under the desk. More significantly, Putnam noticed a hole in one of Kellner's socks. It was at that point that Putnam felt he was the right man for the job. He loves that Kelleher was just like everyone else. He too had holes in his socks. Although Putnam felt Southwest was right for him, how do we know if he was right for Southwest? I had a chance to spend half a day with Putnam to talk. At one point afternoon, I suggested that we take a break and grab a Starbucks. The mere suggestion incensed him. I'm not going to Starbucks, he cracked. I'm not paying $5 for a cup of coffee. And what the heck is Frappuccino anyway? It was at that point I realized how perfect a fit Putnam was for Southwest. He was an everyman, a Dunkin' Donuts guy. He was a perfect man to take the torch from Kelleher and charge forward. Southwest inspired him. In the case of Howard Putnam, Kelleher hired someone who could represent the cause, not reinvent it. Today, it has become so acculturated that it's almost automatically, it's almost automatic. The same could be said for Colleen Barrett, who became president of Southwest in 2001, some 30 years after she was working as Kelleher's secretary in his San Antonio law firm. By 2001, the company had nearly 30,000 employees and a fleet of 344 planes. By the time she took over, Barrett says that running the company had become a very collective effort. Kelleher stopped his day to day involvement in the company, but left a corporate culture so strong that his presence in the hallways was no longer needed. The physical person had largely been replaced by the folklore of Kelleher, but it is the folklore that has helped keep the why alive. Barrett freely admits that she is not the smartest executive out there. She is self deprecating in her personal assessment, in fact. But as the leader of the company, being the smartest was not her job. Her job was to lead the cause, to personify the value, and to remind everyone why they are there. The good news is, it will be easy to know if a successor is carrying the torch. Simply apply the salary test and see if what the company is saying and doing makes sense. Test whether what they're doing effectively proves why they were founded. If we can't easily access the company's why simply from looking at their products, services, marketing, and public statements, then odds are high that they don't know what it is either. If they did, so would we. When the why goes, what is all you'll have left? On October 5th, 1992, at approximately 8 in the morning, Walmart lost its why. On that day, Sam Walton, Walmart's inspired leader, the man who embodied the cause around which he built the world's largest retailer, died in the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences Hospital in Little Rock of bone marrow cancer. Soon after, Walton's oldest son, S. Robson Walton, who succeeded his father as chairman of the company, gave a public statement. No changes are expected in the corporate direction, controls, or policy. Sadly, for Walmart employees, customers, and shareholders, that is not what happened. Sam Walton was the embodiment of every man. Though he was named the richest man in America by Forbes magazine in 1985, a title that he held until he died, he never understood the importance others placed on money. Certainly, Walton was a competitor, and money was a good yardstick of success. But that's not what gave Walton or those who worked at Walmart the feeling of success. It was people Walton valued above all else. People. Look after people, and people will look after you, was his belief. And everything Walton and Walmart did proved it. In his early days, for example, Walton insisted on showing up for work at Saturdays out of fairness to his store employees who had to work on weekends. He remembered birthdays and anniversaries, and even that a cashier's mother had just undergone gallbladder surgery. He chastised his executives for driving expensive cars and resisted using corporate jet for many years. If the average Americans didn't have those things, then neither should those who are supposed to be their champions. Walmart never went through a split under Walton's command because Walton never forgot where he came from. I still can't believe it was news that I get my hair cut at the barber shop. Where else would I get it? He said. Why do I have to drive a pickup truck? What am I supposed to haul my dogs in? A Rolls Royce? Often seen wearing his signature tweed jacket and trucker's cap, Walton was the embodiment of those he aimed to serve, the average Joe American. With a company so beloved by employees, customers, and communities, Walton made only one major blunder. He didn't put his cause into clear enough words so that others could continue to lead the cause after he died. It is not entirely his fault. The part of the brain that controls the why doesn't control language. So, like so many, the best Walton could articulate was how to bring his cause to life. He talked about making products cheap to make things more affordable to the average working American. He talked about building stores in rural communities so that backbone America's workforce didn't have to travel to the urban centers. It all made sense. All his decisions passed the salary test. It was the why upon which the company was built. However, that was left unsaid. Walton was involved in the company until just before his death, when his ailing health prevented him from participating any longer. Like all organizations with founder leaders whose physical presence helps keep the why alive, his continued involvement IJ the company, he reminded everyone why they came to work every day. He inspired everyone around him. Just as ran OIJ, the fumes of Steve Jobs for a few years after he left the company, before the significant cracks to show, so did Walmart remember Sam Walton and his wife for a short time after he died. But as the why started to get fuzzier and fuzzier, the company changed direction. From there on, there would be a new motivation at that company. And it was something that Walton himself cautioned against chasing money. Costco was founded in 1983 by the Y type Jim Sinegal and How type Jeffrey Brotman. Sinegal learned about discount retailings from Saul Price, the same person from whom Sam Walton admitted to borrowing much of what he knew about business. And like Walton, Senegal believes in people first. We're going to be a company that's on first name basis with everyone, he said in an interview on ABC's News Magazine Show 2020. Following the same formula as other inspiring leaders, Costco believes in looking after its employees first. Historically, they have paid their people about 40% more than those who work at Sam's Club, the Walmart owned discount warehouse. And Costco offers above average benefits, including health coverage for more than 90% of their employees. As a result, their turnover is consistently 5 times lower than Sam's Club. Like all companies built around a cause, Costco has relied their megaphone to help them grow. They don't have a PR department and they don't spend money on advertising. The law of diffusion is all that Costco needed to get the word out. Imagine you have 1,20,000 loyal ambassadors out there who are constantly saying good things about you. Quips Senegal, recognizing the value of trust and loyalty of his employees over advertising and PR. For years, Wall Street analysts criticized Costco's strategies of spending so much on their people instead of cutting costs to boost margins and help share value. Wall Street would prefer the company to focus on what they did at the expense of why they did. A Dutchess bank analyst told Fortune magazine, Costco continues to be a company that is better at serving the club members and employees than shareholders. Fortunately, Senegal trusts his gut more than he trusts the Wall Street analysts. Wall Street is in the business for making money between now and next Tuesday, he said in the interview. We're in the business of building an organization, an institution that we hope will be here 50 years from now. And paying good wages and keeping people working with you is very good business. The amazing insight in all of this is not just how inspiring Senegal is, but almost everything he says and does echoes Sam Walton. Walmart got as big as it did, doing the exact same thing, focusing on why and ensuring that what they did proved it. Money is never a cause, it is always a result. But on that fateful day, on April 1992, Walmart stopped believing their why. Since Sam Walton's death, Walmart has been battered by scandals of mistreating employees and customers, all in the name of shareholder value. Their why has gone so fuzzy that even when they're doing well, few are willing to give them credit. The company, for example, was among the first major corporations to develop an environmental policy aimed at reducing waste and encouraging recycling. But Walmart's critics have grown so skeptical about the company's motives that the move was largely dismissed and posturing. Walmart has been working to improve its image and lighten its environmental impact for several years now. A column published by the New York Times website on 28th October 2008. Walmart is still selling consumerism even if it pledges to cut social and environmental costs of making stuff into its stores. Costco, on the other hand, was later than Walmart to announce an environmental policy, yet has received a disproportionate amount of attraction. The difference is that people believe it when Costco does it. When people know why and you do what you do, they are willing to give you credit for everything you could serve as proof of why. When they are unclear about your why, what you do has no context. Even though the things you do or decision you make may be good, they won't make sense to others without a clear understanding of why. And what of the results? Still running on the memory of Sam Walton, Walmart's culture stayed intact at first, and the value of two stocks was about even for a few years after Walton died. But as Walmart continued to run its business in a post-SAM, post-split manner, while Costco maintained clarity of its why, the difference in value changed dramatically. An investment in Walmart on the day Sam Walton died would have earned a shareholder 300% gain by the time this book was written. An investment made in the Costco on the same day would have netted an 800% gain. Costco's advantage is that the embodiment of their why, Tim Senegal, is still there. The thing he says and does help reinforce all those around what the company stands for. Staying true to that why, Senegal draws a $430,000 salary. Relatively small amount given the size and success of the company. At Walmart's peak, Sam Walton never took a salary more than $350,000 per year, also consistent with what he believed. David Glass, the first man to take over as the CEO after Sam Walton, a man who spent considerable time around Walton, said a lot of what goes on these days with high flying companies and these overpaid CEOs are just looting from the top and aren't watching out for anybody but themselves really upsets me. It's one of the main things wrong with American businesses today. Three more CEOs have attempted to carry the torch of that Walton led, and with each succession of the torch, that clear sense of purpose, cause, and belief has grown dimmer and dimmer. The new hope lies in Michael T. Duke, who took over as the CEO in early 2009. Duke's goal is to restore the luster and the clarity of Walmart's why. And to do it, he started by paying himself an annual salary of 5.43 million. Discover why. The origins of a why. It started in Vietnam War era, North California, where anti-government ideals and disdain for large centers of power ran rampant. Two young men saw power of government and corporation as the enemy, not because they were big per se, but because they squashed the spirit of the individual. They imagined a world in which an individual had a voice.
Bhavesh, you can stop and ask Akshaya, Taranjeet, and Devamma to speak.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Akshaya, what did you understand from what I just read now?
Yeah, firstly, it was you read it really well, and actually I came in between. I understood few points, not entirely. So one
Okay,
thing was staying humble is really important, and second one was having a long sight vision is always very much important. Like if you take any company, I don't know which you mentioned, but I forgot that
okay,
like initially they'll be having huge profits, but after a while they'll drown. So having long term visions is really important.
okay,
And third one, uh, I don't know whether the third point what I understood is what exactly given. I'll just tell it
yeah.
about that what and why. That thing was like I felt like if we collaborate with different mindset people, entirely different from what we think, maybe there'll be a bit chance of success. The success will be more.
Yeah, I'll explain it what that point means. First, let me ask everyone what they understood from the topic. Then I'll explain the meaning. Devamma, what did you understand?
No, sir. Actually, I have joined from 5 minutes ago. I don't know anything.
Okay, fine. Taranji, what did you understand?
The thing that we have been discussing it since so many days, the why is very important, because if we lose our vision, it is difficult to travel. If I know what is there in my mind and I'm very clear about it, I can travel that way. And
Yeah,
I would always take such kind of people along, those who have the same mindset, and
yeah.
I can reach success. The example of Costco and Walmart, no, very
Yes.
good example. Till Walton was there, because I've been there to that place. I know how different, like how the changes I've seen in that company.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Walmart was once considered as really a people's store. like how we have DMart in India. But
Yes. Yeah.
after, rightly said, after Walmart has Walton passed away, the why was lost and the how came into, and people became more money minded, and at the same time, Costco grew.
Yeah.
And Costco has a very strong sense of why, and they are people oriented. They think about the benefit. They don't think about. They think about their employees. How Walton was doing. Same example I would say replicated in India by Tata, Sir Ratan Tata, who recently passed
Yes.
away. I don't know what is going to happen to the company now with Newell Tata
Yeah.
coming in. But I have worked with Tatas. I know how good care is taken off. And when we had that 24/11 incident over here in Mumbai, 9/11 incident,
Yeah.
Tata took very good care. Like, it did not think about whether it will gain profit or it will be a loss to the company or whatever. But he said that my employees have to be, the families of the employees also
Have to be
have to be taken
compensated.
care of. They
Yes. Yeah.
have been taken good care of. Like when Nano came, the speech that Tata gave was such, like, that sentence was so beautiful. A promise is a promise is a promise. That is something that people identify, even though Ambanis and Adanis are even more richer.
Yeah.
That feeling of being there, like your own company, your own everything, that Tata, what Tata has given, that feeling people cannot identify with Jio or
Or other
say,
companies.
Amazon
Yes.
company. Yeah, very true. So that is something, the people's company, I would say Tata has always been people's company. So they always put the people before. See the Starbucks that we have in India and abroad also. If you have been abroad, there is a very huge difference between what we have it in India and what they have abroad.
Yeah. Star contracts.
Yeah, it is really very much different. You can feel the specialness, how it spoke. Very simple example of ceramic cups. Here you get it
Yeah.
in India, but there abroad you don't get. You get that paper cups over there. It's such a simple thing, but it is so much of it adds so much of value to the company. Uh, the why has to be very clear, and if your why is clear, people will love you. And once people love you, that loyalty doesn't go. When we love somebody, the loyalty doesn't go very easily. The trust
Very
that,
easily.
yeah,
Yes.
the trust that is built over the years um, will, it's really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Some wonderful points there by Mr. Ranjit. As she said, company's why is really, really, really important. And as the successors or the people who take after the original founders, sometimes they're not doing a good job at taking over the company and remembering the why that the company has, and that leads to the downfall of the company. Costco, as the example in the book, is still run by its founder. But whereas in Walmart's case, Sam Walton, he passed away, which led to the company losing its sense of why. And that's the reason why Costco and Walmart, even if they both take the same policies or they both take the same stance on their environmental aspects, Costco is better received because people understand the why of Costco now, and the why of Walmart has become fuzzier. And because of this reason, if people understand the why, they'll sympathize with the company more and like everything that the company does better. And hope that the company will be more successful than other companies, even if they do the same thing. Okay, Akshaya. So this is what the one that you asked me makes the meaning of the what and why which you asked. Okay, then everyone. If you have any doubts, you can ask. The meeting will end in a minute, I think.
Thank you so much for reading for us, Bhavish.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Bhavish. Thank you. And I think we can close the meeting. Good night and have a happy weekend, all of you.
Good
Good night,
night. Happy.
everyone. Yeah.
Thanks.